Questions 27 through 30. Listen to part of a discussion in a science class. Can anyone tell me what a current is? Alice, do you know?
I think it's like when the water in the ocean moves like a river. The current seems to move differently than the water around it.
That's not a bad definition of a current, Alice. Thank you. Oceans and seas have currents. Like Alice said, they're like rivers that move in larger bodies of water. There are both warm water and cold water currents. There are currents all around the world. Some even have names. Do any of you happen to know the name of one? Fred, your hand is up.
The Gulf Stream is a current. I know that because it flows right by our city. In fact, my dad and I take our boat out to fish in the Gulf Stream when we have the time.
Well done, Fred. That was the answer I was looking for. I'm sure most of you have heard of the Gulf Stream, but you might not know what exactly it is. So let me give you a few facts about it. The Gulf Stream is one of the world's largest and longest ocean currents. Look at the map here. It extends from the Gulf of Mexico and passes Florida and the eastern coast of North America as it heads northward. It crosses the Atlantic Ocean and goes to Europe. There, it divides into two main streams. One heads south toward Africa. The other moves north past England and Western Europe and then goes north to Norway. As for the Gulf Stream itself, it's about 100 kilometers wide. It moves at a rate of 2.5 meters per second. It mainly moves eastward and northward because of the wind conditions where it originates. The wind, you see, helps move the water. The Gulf Stream starts with very warm water, but as the wind pushes it, the water starts cooling off. By the time the water reaches Europe, it's much warmer. Cooler. It's much cooler than it was when it left the Gulf of Mexico. Alice?
I heard that the Gulf Stream affects the climates of different places. Is that true?
It sure is, and that's what I want to tell you about now. Now answer the questions. Number 27. What is the subject of the discussion? Number 28. Why does the boy mention the Gulf Stream? Number 29. Why does the water in the Gulf Stream become progressively cooler? Number 30. What will the teacher probably do next? Questions 31 through 33. Listen to a teacher talking in a history class.
In the early 1800s, Texas was a part of Mexico. However, as many Americans began to move westward, lots of them migrated to Texas. After a few years, they had established their own communities. These settlers had no desire to belong to Mexico. Instead, they sought to be independent. Understandably, the Mexicans objected to this. After all, which country wants to lose land that it controls? Anyway, in 1835, some fighting broke out between the American settlers and Mexican soldiers. For the most part, the Americans won those battles. Then, in early 1836, the Mexicans sent a large army into Texas. At that time, the Texans occupied an old Spanish church mission in San Antonio that was called the Alamo. The Mexican army surrounded the Alamo and laid siege to it on February 23, 1836. The Mexicans had around 3,000 men and were led by Santa Anna. The Texans, meanwhile, only had about 250 men. They were led by Colonel William Travis. The famous frontiersmen James Bowie and Davy Crockett were at the Alamo as well. I'm sure you've heard of both men. The siege lasted until March 6th. On March 5th, Santa Anna ordered his soldiers to move into position for an all-out assault on the Alamo the next day. In the morning on the 6th, the attack began. The Texans were good shots and killed a large number of Mexicans who were out in the open. But there were too many Mexican soldiers. The Mexicans breached the walls, broke into the Alamo, and killed all of the men there. It was a stunning defeat for the Texans. However, they used this loss to inspire them to victory. Remember the Alamo became the battle cry of the Texans. They soon defeated Santa Anna's army and even captured him. After that, Texas split apart from Mexico and became an independent nation.
Now answer the questions. Number 31. What is the main topic of the teacher's talk? Number 32. What does the teacher imply about the Mexicans? Number 33. Why does the teacher mention James Bowie and Davy Crockett? Questions 34 through 37. Listen to a teacher talking in a biology class.
Australia has lots of unusual mammals, such as the kangaroo and the koala. We're going to get to them in a bit, but for a couple of minutes, I'd like to tell you about another unique animal that lives there. It's called the dingo. The dingo is a predator that's similar to a dog. I guess you could say it's more like a wild dog. It's believed that the dingo migrated to Australia from Southeast Asia thousands of years ago, since there are wild dogs similar to the dingo in some parts of Southeast Asia. Anyway, the dingo lives mainly in the interior of Australia, which is called the outback. It has short fur that's reddish-brown in color, but its underside is more whitish in color. The dingo has short, pointed ears and a long tail. As for its size, it averages around 30 kilograms in weight. It can live for up to 20 years. As I already mentioned, the dingo is a predator. In fact, it's Australia's largest predator that lives solely on land. The dingo typically eats small mammals like rabbits and rats. It also eats birds and reptiles, particularly lizards. The dingo has been known to attack livestock, mainly sheep and cattle. There's an ongoing battle in Australia between farmers who want to kill the dingoes that attack their livestock and people who want to keep them alive. Dingoes occasionally attack humans and have, in a few rare cases, killed small children. The dingo is a social animal that typically travels in packs of up to 10. In that way, I suppose it's like the wolf, another animal related to the dog. Female dingoes breed once a year and give birth to up to 5 pups at a time. The pups usually stay with their mother for up to 8 months. Now, let me tell you a little about how dingoes communicate with each other. I think this is pretty interesting.
Now answer the questions. Number 34. What is the purpose of the lecture? Number 35. What does the teacher suggest about the dingo? Number 36. According to the teacher, what is true about the dingo? Number 37. How is the dingo similar to the wolf? Questions 38 through 42. Listen to a teacher talking in a physics class. As I'm sure you know, there are 8 planets in the solar system. What you might not be aware of, however, is that we can divide these planets into 2 distinct groups. Astronomers call them the inner and outer planets. Some also refer to them as terrestrial planets and Jovian planets, respectively. The inner planets are naturally those closest to the Sun. They are Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. The outer planets, or Jovian planets, are Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. The inner and outer planets have a number of characteristics that make them different from one another. I'm going to go over them for you now. First, the most obvious difference is their size. The inner planets are the 4 smallest, while the outer planets are the 4 biggest. Jupiter is the largest, and Mercury is the smallest. Another obvious difference, if you think about it, is that the terrestrial planets orbit the Sun much more quickly than the Jovian planets. Earth takes 365 days to orbit the Sun. Mercury takes 88 days. Venus 224, and Mars almost 687. Jupiter, however, takes 12 years to orbit the Sun, and that's the fastest of the Jovians. Another clear difference is the number of moons that orbit them. Mercury and Venus have none. Earth has 1, and Mars has 2. The outer planets each have large numbers of moons. Let's see. Neptune has 13, Uranus 27, Saturn 62, and Jupiter at least 63. Okay, so what about the less apparent differences? One is their composition. The inner planets are rocky and have solid cores, which make them dense. The outer planets are mainly made of gases, aren't very solid, and aren't very dense. They're often called gas giants. Another difference is how quickly or slowly they rotate on their axis. The outer planets rotate quickly, which gives them short days. A day on Jupiter is about 10 hours, while Saturn's day is 10 hours 40 minutes long. Contrast that with Mercury, which takes more than 58 days to rotate once, and Venus completes one revolution in 243 days. That's longer than a Venusian year. Now answer the questions. Number 38. What is the teacher mainly discussing? Number 39. Why does the teacher talk about the outer planets? Number 40. What is another name for the inner planets? Number 41. According to the teacher, which planet has the most moons? Number 42. What can be inferred about Saturn? Stop. This is the end of the listening section.